I remember the first time I heard the phrase relaxation induced anxiety. I was like, wow, it has a name and other people feel this? So that was in the 90s. I had recently begun meditating and I definitely experienced relaxation induced anxiety. The term seemed to disappear from the consciousness of our country, but yet in the last 15 years, more and more research has been done on this, especially given how many more people are meditating and how much more science is telling us that relaxation techniques are key to not just lowering our anxiety, but to staying healthy, to helping our bodies reset, improving our immune response, all of these huge benefits from relaxation. So what do you do if you have relaxation-induced anxiety? So in today's video, I'm going to give you the 3 main reasons that I believe this happens. Then I'll talk about 4 things you can do about it. And I want to end by giving you a little bit of hope on this topic. So I'd like to start by reading you the scientific definition of relaxation-induced anxiety, and then we'll drill into what this really means. So relaxation-induced anxiety is a paradoxical increase in physiological, behavioral, and cognitive aspects of anxiety when an individual engages in an effort to relax. So if you've been watching some of my CBT videos, you are now very familiar with the connection between how we physically feel, our physiological feelings, our cognitions, our thoughts, and our behaviors. So what this definition says is that basically when people try to relax, if they have relaxation-induced anxiety, their physical feelings become more anxious, their thoughts might become more anxious, and sometimes their behaviors may become more anxious. In layman's terms, this means that efforts to unwind make you stressed. So why does this happen? I'm going to share the 3 main reasons that I feel that this happens, and I've developed these reasons from both teaching people meditation, which I have done for more than 20 years, as well as helping people as a psychotherapist reduce their anxiety. So reason number 1 is related to the survival focus of our brain. Very early in human history, our brains developed in order to keep us alive and surviving. And prior to humans, we can actually go way back in the evolutionary chain and find that a survival mechanism existed all the way back to the reptiles, the early reptiles. And we can see this in action today. So I'm going to invite you to think about a little lizard who's laying on a rock. Now, this doesn't happen in Connecticut, but I have traveled to many countries and states where the lizards just love to lay on a rock or even on the walls of the room that you're in. You know, they'll be like sort of relaxing and just hanging out on the wall. It's almost as if they have one eye open, right? They will notice where you are. They know where you are the whole time. And the second you get too close, boom, they're gone. That's their amygdala in action. That's their survival technique. And we have that as well. But we don't really need it anymore. We really don't need it anymore. Most of the places that we relax, we are relatively safe. So we really don't need to have this hairspin response while we're relaxing, but it's a little bit integrated in how we were formed. So figuring out how to calm that down is very important. And then I also want to bring in a complicating factor, which is that if you had a childhood, say, where you would be playing or you'd be having a good time, and then somebody lost their temper or would get angry at you, you will have a lot of experiences of being relaxed and then boom, being shocked out of it. And that stays in your system. It stays in the old emotional brain so that when you try to relax today, you always might have this jumpiness that you don't need anymore, right? So it may have made sense when you were little, but it doesn't make sense anymore. So that's actually one of the main reasons that I have seen relaxation-induced anxiety exist. And actually, I think back to my grandmother, who was very sweet and really a very meaningful person in my life. But when we were playing, I was one of 5 kids, so you can imagine how chaotic that was. When we were playing, she would always be like, somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get hurt. And then I realized when I grew up and I was older and I was watching my kids, that would come out in my head, is somebody going to get hurt, right? So we get this jumpiness to try to prevent something from happening. But if you're sitting in a calm place in meditation, you really don't need that. So there's an element here of rewiring these somewhat automatic responses. Okay, reason number 2. Now, I see this a lot in the literature these days, that researchers are focusing on how people with a lot of anxiety don't like to give up control. And that language doesn't really sit well with me, although I understand what the focus is. But in actuality, it's actually giving up the pretense of control, because the things we worry about that really create anxiety and the things that will spike when you're trying to relax are generally not the things that are in your control. They're the things you might want to control or think you might want to control. So it's really about giving up a pretense of control. So if it's possible when you're trying to relax to reassure yourself that it's okay to do so right now, that there actually is nothing for you to control at this moment, and that that's okay. So really letting yourself sink into the moment that it's okay to occasionally let go of your responsibilities. It's okay to take some of these worries off your mind, and sometimes really compartmentalizing it. Say setting your timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so you can really say, nothing in the world's going to change right now if I let myself relax for 5 minutes. So that is a reason that's written about a lot in literature, and that would be reason number 2. And some of what I've read on this talks about how people, particularly those with, say, generalized anxiety disorder, worry in order to elicit and sustain anxiety as a means of avoiding being vulnerable. Now, I don't know that I agree that people are actively trying to maintain worry and anxiety, but that avoiding of vulnerability I agree with, and that's going to bring me to reason number 3. We often stay so busy because we don't want to feel sadness or disappointment. We stay super busy because the anxiety is more comfortable than some of those other negative emotions that we might feel. And I've found in my work with people for the last couple of decades that sadness and disappointment in particular are emotions people have a very hard time tolerating. They would rather stay in a continual state of anxiety than feel sadness that might actually be more appropriate to the situation. So just an example might be if you have a relative who's really, really struggling and you're in a constant state of anxiety about hoping that person does the right thing or helping them do the right thing or trying to get them to do the right thing, and you can't do any of that, which means it's sustaining your feelings of anxiety. But what the real congruent feeling in is sadness. It's sadness that this person is suffering so much, this person you love isn't getting it together, can't seem to make progress in their life. So sadness is the congruent emotion. So really thinking about allowing yourself to feel the feelings such as sadness and then disappointment, I find that is another one that people just want to avoid no matter what. I would rather anticipate the worst thing than think something good is going to happen and be disappointed. Why? Is disappointment that bad? And some people will say yes, but it's actually not. We can learn to deal with disappointment. Nobody likes it. I don't like it. But it's better than maintaining my body in a state of continual anxiety, which is bad for my health, bad for my brain, bad for my relationships. Once in a while, we are going to be disappointed. We live on this earth. All sorts of things are out of our control. We are going to feel sadness, we are going to feel disappointment, but allowing ourselves to feel those feelings actually opens up room to feel the opposite, to feel joy and delightful surprise and equanimity, a feeling of being balanced. So we have so many emotions. Let's not cover them all up with this one, anxiety, right? Okay, so those are 3 reasons that I think this happens. Now I'm going to give you 4 tools you can implement to help. And as I mentioned, I will end with a hopeful way to think about this situation. So number 1, don't let your anxiety prevent you from practicing relaxation techniques. Don't fear the anxiety that comes up. Understand this may be part of the process of you learning to relax, of you learning to allow yourself to be in a relaxed yet awake and alert state. How can you achieve that kind of balance? It takes practice. So don't let the anxiety prevent you from trying. So that would be number 1. Don't fear the anxiety. Don't let it prevent you from trying. That old brain of yours is trying to keep you safe, but it's misguided. It's not needed right now. Okay, number 2. Have realistic expectations. I find that this is the thing that makes so many people say, I can't meditate, is they think that when they sit in meditation, they should be able to calm their mind. They should be able to feel calm. Their thoughts should quiet. That doesn't happen right away. That could take a really long time. So having realistic expectations so that you don't go to a place of, oh, I can't do this, or, oh, I don't like this, or this is uncomfortable and I'm not doing it right anyway. Realistic expectations could be, okay, anxiety might come up for me when I try this. And then again, maybe it won't. Let's see, let's be curious. Rather than having pre-imposed expectations, can I bring an attitude of curiosity to this relaxation exercise? Can I really go in and experience what is this I'm feeling and how is this impacting me? And let me try it. You might know people or see people who claim or appear to sit in meditation and be perfectly blissful. That is very rare. It really is. And people don't always share what's truly going on for them. Now, I'll tell you, I've gone to very long meditation retreats where, say, I'll be sitting for 8 hours a day over the course of 7 days. So as you do that much meditation, you go through so many moods, right? So I could be sitting there and I could actually be like, okay, enjoying the sounds. Maybe there's a little bit of birds in the background. I'm breathing. I'm focusing on my breath. I'm feeling very calm. And then out of nowhere, my mood changes and I have all this anxiety in my body. And this is really common. I will tell you, most people who sit long meditation retreats will experience this. And then you might move back to being okay, focusing on your breath and feeling more relaxed, or maybe a happy memory comes up, or maybe a sad memory comes up. And then boom, you're crying all of a sudden. You're like, so nothing in the external world is changing. And your mood is going all over the place. It's really a very, very interesting experience. And I'm looking forward to this pandemic lifting so I can begin to do a few more longer retreats. But this can happen with a 20-minute meditation practice at home as well. Your moods change. They just do. And you begin to develop a little bit more equanimity around it, a little bit more distance, so that you don't have to believe every thought and feeling. But a reasonable expectation that trying a relaxation exercise for 10 minutes a day for a couple of weeks is not necessarily going to make you feel immediately relaxed. And the same could be true of yoga or Tai Chi or some other mindfulness exercises. It might take a while before you feel the benefits beginning, but they will begin. So, reasonable expectations. Recommendation number 3 is to try different techniques. Different techniques work for different people, and I actually find that grounding techniques can be super helpful for people who have relaxation-induced anxiety, really grounding into the moment, bringing your attention to your senses, to your feet on the floor, to actually what's very clearly happening in the room around you. Or if you're outdoors, even better if you can be in a nice, calm outdoor place. That can be really helpful for this. But I do have a video on grounding techniques, and there are many other videos on YouTube about grounding techniques. I do find that as an easier entree into learning to be physiologically relaxed. And then number 4 is the concept of mindfulness. Beginning to practice different mindful techniques, even if it's not sitting in mindful meditation, though I do think that can be helpful, but you can mindfully drink a cup of tea or coffee or mindfully take a walk, but being mindfully present with exactly what is happening rather than projecting into the future, rather than trying to figure out a problem, rather than worrying about the past, being mindfully present. And your capacity to do that can grow fairly dramatically with effort. And this can come down to the question of, can you feel safe when you are safe, right? Like nobody's recommending you mindfully meditate in the middle of a highway where you are not safe. No, we're mindfully aware that's not safe. But if you do have a safe space, can you feel safe when you actually are safe enough? So really developing that ability is key, in my view, to living a more joyful life. Now, I want to give you hope, as I said I would. on this issue of relaxation-induced anxiety. So there's been a lot more studies now, a lot more research looking at how do you help people recover from anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder and other types of anxiety disorders when relaxation tools are so key to the process. How do you help those people whose anxiety goes up when they try to relax? And the research right now is somewhat inconclusive, but overall it does not show that people who experience the relaxation-induced anxiety actually have a harder time recovering if they actually are willing to persevere and sit through it. So the benefits to somebody who has relaxation-induced anxiety of the relaxation techniques can actually be greater than for other people. So it does not have to be this way forever. That's the hope. I encourage you to start the journey. I appreciate your listening to this video. If you liked it, please do give it a like. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like. It's free and you'll be notified of additional videos that I release. And the focus of my channel is to help people live a more joyful life. See you next week.